Hi, this is Dr. Priscilla Silveraj, professor in the psychology department teaching Intro to Psychology, and we are here to talk about suicide. And let's try first from looking at these two stories, Hayden and Colton, and they do have two different experiences. And I want you all to go through the story and see how similar or how different are these two experiences or do these two of these scenarios. What do you think are few things that stand out to you in these? As you were just reading that, I want you to think how similar, how different. I'm probably guessing you by now have read that both clearly are troubled individuals who are hurting. Both are, especially with regard to the ending result, both scenarios may sound like they may have gone through a similar experience, but they don't. One scenario describes self-harm, while the other involves taking one's own life. Self-harm, in this case, Hayden, is thought to be directly linked with suicide, um, and it's not. What we find is two are actually as different as night and day. Unfortunately, two are oftentimes grouped together because both are inflictions of pain, and sometimes people who begin with self-harm, it's true that later some of them commit suicide, but generally people who self-harm do not wish to kill themselves, in this case Hayden, whereas suicide is the way of ending, people see that as a way of ending life. So one significant difference that we have to, before we start talking about suicide, is to understand the intent of people who are engaging in self-harm behavior, and those who are attempting suicide, are the intent is what makes it different. So simply to put it in a way, a suicidal person sees no other way out, and wants to end his or her own life. People who are contemplating suicide are experiencing life stressors and possibly depression that we spoke in the last video, in which they don't find a way of escape. So suicide is their attempt to escape from the pain and from suffering, not not burdening their loved ones. It's not that they don't bother, it's just that they don't want to burden. So suicidal acts usually come from a place of hopelessness, depression, and worthlessness. An underlying mindset between or the mindset between someone who is suicidal and someone who is engaging in self-harm, the underlying mindset is different. So let's have that in our mind as we begin to explore a little bit more about suicide. So suicide is defined as death directed injurious behavior with intent to kill, right? So it's important for us to understand what attempting suicide is different from people who have ideations of suicide or suicidal thoughts. Suicide is, some of the statistics here you can see that average per day, 123 people actually end their life, and men die more. It's interesting to see the difference of how women were double in terms of numbers with depression, but suicide acting on the men are more than women, and it's almost 10th major leading reason of death in the U.S. It's interesting to see how although it's 10th in the U.S. of all ages, actually it's the third leading cause of death among individuals of this 10 to 14, and between 15 to 34, that's the second leading cause. So it's important for us to understand the seriousness of this topic that we're discussing here. So I do want to focus on real life people and their situations. I can talk about different things, what causes people to think, come to this end of their road, the travel of life. I can talk about different things, but I think it's important for us to hear from people. Here are some collections for us. This is for especially when I work with kids and talk about bullying and cyberbullying. I do share Amanda's story, a video that she did herself. If you're someone who's not watched it before, I'll encourage you to watch it. I think it's a great eye opener to see how kids engage in something like bullying and don't think ahead of time of what kind of consequences that can have on others, and how people can end their lives, causing self-harm and suicide. And this is Kevin's story. This is so different. The reason I wanted to bring that in was a different reason, different way in which a person actually chose to end his life, but hearing how he survived and the lessons he learned and the regrets he has, I think it's very important for us to hear. As we listen to people who have attempted or who have already committed suicide, Amanda is no more. I also want to hear the other side of the story. I want us to hear. So I want us to know, to see what people who actually have undergone this whole loss of loved one, what do they think about someone who has gone through this or have completed suicide. Let's in this video at least hear from individuals who have experience of their loved ones, who died because of suicide. I want us to listen to those. So in the video below, in the comments below of this video, I would like for you to post your comments on your thoughts after you watch these videos, and the link for the videos would also be available for you in the description below. So let's continue to think how you and I can work together to help. So the next few videos that I'll be posting next week could be about what are different ways we can reach out to people and how can we be of help at the time of crisis and in our life overall.